Have you ever wondered if your well-meaning support might actually be holding your family back? Today, we're going to uncover the surprising ways that enabling can impact relationships and how shifting to empowerment can transform your relationships.
Hey parents, welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. Do you want to raise your kids better and have a stronger marriage? Are you up late at night researching marriage and parenting tools and self-care tips? Do you start each day hoping for deeper connections and less chaos, but it ends with family arguments and going 12 different directions again? My name's Kendra, wife, mom, therapist, and growth enthusiast. It wasn't until I discovered how to fulfill my unmet needs that I was finally able to show up as my best self, as a spouse and parent. I realized that by meeting my needs, I could more fully meet the needs of my family with more energy and less resentment. In this podcast, I teach parents skills like boundary setting, prioritizing personal needs, communication, and claiming ownership. Just like my clients, you'll be shocked by the improvement in your marriage, parenting, and personal life when you focus on fulfilling your important unmet needs. Ready to prioritize yourself so you can quit mentally throat punching people? Then grab those earbuds and head outside, and let's rock and talk.
Welcome back to Fulfillment Therapy, where we explore ways to improve your mental health, wellness, and life fulfillment. I'm your host, Kendra Nielsen, and today we're talking about a common yet misunderstood behavior, and that is enabling. This is something I've talked about before, but it's worth coming back to again and again because it comes up with all my clients again and again. You might have noticed that my voice is a little bit off today. I do have a cold. Feeling pretty good, but I sound a little different for sure. So yes, you are listening to the same person, despite the voice change. And before I jump into everything, I do want to remind you about our amazing courses that are there for you to take your life to the next level. So don't forget to check those out. I really have put in so much to these super affordable courses. And if you're feeling like you're just stuck, but you're not ready to sign up with a therapist, or maybe you have in the past, and you just need a little extra accountability or psychoeducational resources, tools, any of those things, those are there for you in simple step-by-step ways broken down into weekly lessons. Generally, those are 12 weeks. So if you want 3 simple months of diving in to improve your life, go check those out on fulfillmenttherapy.org. All right, now hopping back into enabling. Enabling is when we support others in ways that prevent them from facing the consequences of their actions, and that unintentionally fosters dependency and unhealthy behaviors. It's almost like being a safety net that's always deployed, and it prevents your spouse or kids from learning to navigate life's challenges independently, almost like how a bird might never learn to fly if it's always carried by a parent. Like it might not even know that it's capable of flying because the parent always wants to make it easy on that child. So I want to start with a story because I love stories. I had this client recently that was talking about how much they love their kids. She's an incredible mom in a lot of ways. She loves to show up for her kids, but now they're adult children, and she's continually complaining about this situation where they are expecting her to do all these things, even without asking. When it comes to childcare, when it comes to finances, she lets them stay on their property rent-free, some of them, and they're always bailing their kids out of financial distress. Now, nobody questions their love for their kids. And yet she's put herself in this situation where they are continuing to take from her because she keeps giving and giving. So like we always do, we go back to boundaries, we do some boundary work, we do some assertiveness training, many of these things that help all of us because there's always more we can do to communicate more effectively and to stand up for ourselves and to teach people about what's okay and what's not okay. I don't want to get into an episode here about boundaries and assertiveness, although I always come back to those as well because they're very important. But this one is about enabling. Like, how can you know if you're crossing that line? Now let's just talk hypothetically here. Maybe you can imagine a family where the parents are always covering for their kids' mistakes, thinking that they're helping. But as time passes, that child grows into an adult who expects other people to fix their problems. When we do this, like I just mentioned in that other story with my client, we are creating children that depend on us too much, and they don't learn how to be self-sufficient. They don't learn how to be more resilient. So how do we break this cycle if we're falling into that in simple ways? Like maybe you're not even financially covering everything for your kids or having them live on your property, or they rely on you for all their childcare. Maybe you're not to that extreme, but you find that you're doing it in small ways, like taking them their homework every time when they forget it, or if they have problems with their friends, you're trying to work it out. There's a friend that I have that often will text me if there's problems between our kids, and I will never engage in that. Though you might be different here, but I don't want to teach my kids that they are incapable of handling their conflict. I encourage them to talk about it. If they're not ready to, I do not push them too much, maybe gentle nudges, but I give them time to process and then I revisit it with them. But I don't jump in to fix it. And I definitely don't do these things where parents can overcorrect and say, oh, my kid's right. And you just get that mama bear sense and you just want to defend them even when they might be in the wrong. So I really try to teach my kids, no, I'm not going to solve your problem, but I will help you process it and work through it. And then you can go and solve that problem because I want to teach them to be self-sufficient. All right, now let's review enabling one more time because sometimes people understand it from a different angle. So enabling involves supporting someone in a way that prevents them from facing those consequences for their actions, which again leads to that dependency and those unhealthy behaviors. Like maybe you've noticed it in friends or family members where the kids are too shy and they don't want to do anything and their parents feel bad for them, so they do it for them. That is just making them more shy and perpetuating that problem, and it's not teaching them to be self-sufficient. Now, it doesn't mean we can't help them in small ways, but are you crossing that line into enabling? Dr. Robyn Gobbel said, enabling involves justifying or indirectly supporting someone else's potentially harmful behavior. So do you find yourself going back to that justification? That's a good warning sign that you are enabling. With a lot of my clients, that first one that pops up is often financial enabling. So do you provide unnecessary financial support, such as giving monthly allowance or paying bills without accountability? One way I noticed that I was almost going to jump in to save my daughter recently was she signed up for a bunch of extracurricular trips that she wanted to do, and she minimized it and said, oh, it's nothing. It's not a big deal. Yeah, it's covered financially because she really wanted to go. She didn't want us to know that it was more money. Like some of them were even like $500 or more. And we trusted her and we didn't realize that there was a fee attached. And when we did, she's like, oh, I'll take care of it. Or I did take care of it. She wasn't being completely honest. She was avoiding things in some cases. And it ended up that she's about to graduate and now she has a $1,000 bill on her school account. And I had been asking about that repeatedly for a while. And it turns out she missed out on opportunities for reimbursement for different things because of it. And I really want to save her from that pain. And yet she's not going to learn her lesson if I keep bailing her out. So my husband and I chose to allow her to experience that pain and the discomfort for herself. That meant talking to her teachers herself, the principal herself, working extra hours to make up for that, doing those things so she can still get her diploma. Are you too quick to jump in to save your kids? Are you enabling them and robbing them of an opportunity to learn? Another thing we can do is emotionally enable our kids. If we're consistently boosting their self-esteem with blame-deflecting phrases like they're just jealous or something like that, or, oh, it's a them problem, or focusing on their flaws instead of teaching them to take ownership, then we are emotionally enabling our kids and teaching them to be a victim, teaching them to stay in that victim cycle instead of that ownership model, and preventing them from really thriving. So that's another way that I see it pop up with clients. Now let's talk about what it looks like to enable your spouse. Do you find yourself making excuses for your spouse or your partner over and over again, especially when they drop the ball and they're not as responsible? Maybe you handle all the household chores and don't address it when they fail to contribute at home. Maybe that's with meals or cleaning or whatever that is, but you find that you are giving maybe 80%, maybe 90%, and your spouse is not. And you are justifying that. You're making excuses because maybe you're a little embarrassed yourself. Or maybe you even financially bail them out of things like they racked up a bunch of debt on the credit card and didn't discuss it with you. Or other issues where you just tried to fix the problem so that it wouldn't turn into a fight. It is so empowering to get to that space where you allow them to have to clean up their mistakes. Now, I know there's sometimes a space where it does affect you. I've had that happen with some clients, but that's more the exception. Generally, you can allow them to clean up their own mess and not make excuses for them and allow them the discomfort of having to face their actions on their own. I want to go back to enabling kids for a minute. I also have had some clients that admit finally that they're even doing their kids' homework to protect them from the natural consequences of having a late assignment. And we definitely talk about how that crosses that line and doesn't teach them how to be more self-reliant or self-sufficient. And it doesn't give them the opportunity while they are under your roof to learn lessons. And you can help guide them through that as they face those consequences, even though it's not comfortable for us. We want to rescue them. That's natural. But resist that compulsion to rescue because it is not serving anyone, yourself included, because you're going to grow in resentment. You're going to decrease your confidence and your self-esteem as you continue to rescue. And it also creates resentment in that other person. And I'll do a podcast episode on that soon because I have a client that is now a grown adult that has talked to me a lot about what it feels like to grow up in a home where your parent enables you so much and how frustrating and annoying that is and how that affects them now as an adult. Let's just talk a little bit more about how we can recognize those enabling behaviors. Are you repeatedly making excuses for someone else's tardiness or their lack of effort or them not doing something? Are you covering for their mistakes, like shielding them from the consequences of their actions, such as maybe missed deadlines or others thinking poorly of them, maybe in your church, in your family, with friends? You find yourself even lying a little bit to put them in a better light because you're embarrassed, because that also reflects on you and maybe your family life, your married life, whatever that might be. Maybe you find yourself taking responsibility and doing the tasks for other people, like completing their work or running their errands, things like that. I will share a personal example here. My daughter, bless her soul, she has two parents that are therapists, so she very much talks like a therapist. She just turned 18 and she's wonderful. But she said, Mom, I can't get to that to help you right now. And I know you like things done quickly, but please don't do it for me and then get frustrated and resentful because you jumped in to do it before I did it because we have different timelines. And I just laughed and I was like, fair point. I will make a conscious effort to not jump in and do that for you and resent you. I will let you do it on your timetable as long as it is done tonight. And she had about 12 hours to do that. And she said, deal. So we both negotiated there. That's something that you can do. I like it done early. She likes it done late. She's a procrastinator. And yet we can both compromise and come to an agreement of it doesn't have to be my way. It doesn't have to be just your way, but we can meet in the middle and still both get our needs met. So that's one way that you can address enabling. And I'll go into that more in just a minute. Alfie Kohn said, if we want children to take responsibility for their own behavior, we must first give them responsibility. So make sure you are also giving them responsibility. Again, I'll talk about this a lot in the next few weeks with that one client that talked to me about what it was like to have a parent very lovingly do everything for you, but the message that sent and how that creates so many problems now. Let me give you an example for a spouse. Maybe you're always covering for your spouse's poor performance at work or in something that another person was relying on them for. Maybe not even being truthful, like I mentioned before, or just minimizing it or casting it in a light that it takes away from that natural consequence that your spouse might face. I do want to just very briefly talk about the impact of enabling. I already alluded to some of this, but it creates resentment and burnout. Remember that beginning story about my client? She is incredibly burnt out as she's taking care of her grandkids and doing all of these things beyond her roles as a retired mother and empty nester. And she's starting to get more resentful, feeling like she's not appreciated and that she's being taken advantage of. And yet she's created that environment by not communicating assertively and setting boundaries and having that pattern for so long of over giving. It also creates that dependency. So it prevents your loved ones from developing that self-reliance and those problem-solving skills that they need to thrive. So you are handicapping your kids. It is often cloaked in love, but it is not helpful. It's not. Naomi Sternberg said, "A parent who continuously rescues his child is trying to rescue himself from the pain of seeing his child self-destruct." Isn't that so good? I'm going to read that again. A parent who continuously rescues his child is trying to rescue himself from the pain of seeing his child self-destruct. So letting go when your child is choosing to do things, no matter what you have taught them, that might bring them pain, but recognizing you're robbing them of an experience that will help them thrive later through that learning opportunity. Another thing that it can do is impact self-esteem, not only for your child, but for yourself. So constantly enabling can erode self-esteem by implying that person is incapable of handling those situations. Again, I'll talk about this in future weeks because there's a lot that goes into this, but it really does send that message that they are incompetent. They're not capable of taking care of themselves. That really erodes that child's self-esteem or even an adult like your spouse. And it erodes your own self-esteem when you get taken advantage of, when you don't feel respected, when they start to rely on you too heavily because you created that environment. When enabling happens and you do this to your spouse and your kids, it leads to several unhealthy behaviors and outcomes, such as, again, dependency and lack of self-reliance, entitlement, and irresponsibility because they know somebody else is going to clean it up. Also, strained relationships because of that tension, that resentment, delayed personal growth because you're stunting their growth. You're preventing them from those experiences that would help them, like that bird learning to fly. Like they don't even know they can fly, and you're preventing them from knowing what they're capable of. And then the last one that comes up is obviously mental health issues. That's why I have those kids come in as my clients, whether they've grown up or they're still kids, because they have depression or anxiety or a myriad of other things because they weren't taught those lessons. They don't believe in themselves. They struggle with self-esteem issues. Maybe you've noticed this yourself with your own parents and you didn't know what you didn't know. You didn't even necessarily want your parents to step in so much. And you thought that was normal and that was okay. But now you're experiencing the detrimental side effects of that, of growing up with that for so long. And maybe you're even noticing yourself repeating that pattern with your own children. Now is the time to step in and stop those patterns. You can shift from enabling to empowering. So empowering involves teaching skills and promoting that self-reliance, while enabling shields people from consequences. So if you notice yourself starting to jump in to save somebody, step back, do whatever you can do to distract yourself, and stop yourself before you go to that pattern again and again. Change those neural pathways. Like I've alluded to before, it's super important to set boundaries. Like in almost every episode I do, when you establish clear limits, that helps encourage that personal responsibility and independence. We all need a little help with this, so do a search for fulfillment therapy and boundaries, and you'll get a lot of episodes where we talk about boundaries. This might be teaching a child to manage their own chores instead of doing them for them. Even though initially that might create a little more work, it will not create more work in the long run, and really not even that long. We think it's going to take a long time, but it doesn't. Another thing I talk to a lot of my clients about. Lynn Lott and Jane Nelson said, turn control over to young people as soon as possible so they have power over their own lives. Now, obviously, we do this as is developmentally appropriate, but we want to give them that power and control. I feel like my husband and I have done this very well because my daughter's about to leave for college. All of my kids help make meals. They start taking a turn to make a meal as soon as they turn 11. So they know how to cook. They do their own laundry. They always have Saturday morning chores. They have after dinner chores, and they know how to be self-reliant so that when it's time to leave, they are very capable of doing it themselves. And if you think they're not, I challenge you to reevaluate that because there's likely a deeper layer that is keeping you both stuck. All right, I'm just going to give you a few quick tips on how to create a healthier dynamic when it comes to changing that enabling. Have those family council discussions. Have open discussion on how to address enabling and how to set boundaries and what they like and what they don't like, and listen to them rather than get defensive. If therapy needs to happen, have a third party that can help you work through these problems, and don't be embarrassed by it. Please remember that so much of therapy is preventative and it helps you work through those wedges. It's important to do this before they leave the house. Even if they're younger, this can be very beneficial. Another big one is make sure that you are doing all you can to learn how to communicate assertively and how to set boundaries. So those are some of the biggest things I work on with clients because they need to be improved again and again until we get that right. All right, those are just a few tips I have for today, my friends. Remember that if you are making excuses or justifications for family members, maybe you are too far on the side of enabling. And it's time to empower them rather than cripple them. Set those boundaries, seek help, collaborate with your family, have those discussions, have that open communication, and seek to change. You don't have to reside in guilt and stew in all of the things you might have done wrong. Just commit to change and remember that we are all learning. Sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And when we do know it, it's our responsibility to take action to change those behaviors. It's not too late. They'll accept your apology. Just move forward knowing that you can change together and it's going to work out. Thanks for listening today, my friends. Don't forget to check out our blog, or if you want to be part of our team, go to fulfillmenttherapy.org, and you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, all the places, and those links are in the show notes, so check them out there. I'll see you back here with a new episode every Monday and Thursday. Until then, my friends.
Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you. No matter what your house or your hair looks like, I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.